And welcome to the virtual booth here, Paul. It is time. We have waited a very long time for this. We get to watch draft at really the highest stakes that we have available here. I mean, there is just no bigger draft that you'll find really in the history of Magic than the one that we're about to watch today.
Yeah, what's been a year and a half or something since we've last watched draft at a level this high, and I'm super excited to see what the people are gonna draft. There's a lot of different storylines kind of coming into this. Draft has evolved a lot over the past 2 to 3 weeks, and now we're kind of at the point where you can maybe draft anything instead of just forcing blue black zombies.
Yeah, that's right. We did see a lot of blue black popularity early in the draft format, but now things have opened up a little bit as people have recognized there's only so many people at a given table that can actually draft that. Take a look at draft number one here. We're going to be following along with the champ, Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa, on the left-hand side. And as you can see, as we work our way around the table, it's Akawa, Sifka, Sato, then Merkel, Strosky, Depra, and Takahashi to wind things out. Of course, the players are going to be opening 3 booster packs. First one's going to go to the left, next one to the right, last one back to the left, and they will build a 40 card deck out of their pile. And you can see, you can see the tension on their faces here, Paul. I'd be feeling the same way as this is going to be undoubtedly the biggest draft of their careers.
Oh, yeah.
Ray Sato is stoked.
I love the energy that you see from Ray Sato. I chose him to be my champion, so got it coming in with that good energy here. But
Wow, table ready, and let's head on down to the draft. And our first pack is already open up here for Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa. And what are you seeing here, Paul? I see Borrowed Time kind of jumps off the page here. Eaten Alive, maybe?
Yeah, Borrowed Time, Eaten Alive, fantastic removal spells that you would be more than happy to put into any deck. Another card that's extremely powerful, but a little more narrow is a card like Seize the Storm. If you're looking to draft a spell-based deck, this is kind of the key card that you want in that deck. But again, that kind of silos you into spells, whereas taking a card like Borrowed Time or Eaten Alive, there's just a lot more flexibility there.
Yeah, I think this is going to show us a lot of the color preferences for Paulo Vitor as well. And it looks like he's going to select Borrowed Time. So he probably had it narrowed down to the 2 removal spells, and he's going to go for the white one here.
Yeah. And that's totally fine. Borrowed Time, an excellent removal spell. A lot of powerful archetypes that you can go. Typically people consider black to be a slightly stronger color, but it's also in a more contested color. People love taking black cards early because 3 of the premier removal spells in the format are all black.
Yeah, and they're common as well. You can see here there's a Play with Fire. Speaking of removal spells, also Revenge of the Drowned has been a good performer, but it looks like Paulo's going to go for Hound Tamer here, a powerful uncommon in green.
Yeah. Now, Play with Fire is typically a very powerful spell, but I think early on in a draft, I think most people are going to probably look to avoid red as the color. When asked, many of the players said red was probably the weakest color and the color that they wanted to avoid because there are several color combinations with red that's just not where you want to be. Red-white, for example, is not one of the more strong archetypes. So if you can help it, unless it's wide open, you don't want to take a red card early.
So a white card and a green card to kick things off here for Damo da Rosa as he takes a look at his next pack, and not a ton for him here. You can see Cathar Commando, Celestius Sanctifier, and Candlelit Cavalry as kind of the headliners for his colors. Turn to Earth isn't something that he's going to be interested in here, but if he doesn't take one of those 3, he's going to have to go into another color.
Yeah, I mean, the most powerful card with the most upside would be that Vampire Socialite that you see, but it's just too far away from the 2 premium cards that he's already picked. So I would guess that he's probably going to go for one of those green or white cards, but this pack for a 3rd pick is really weak here.
Yeah, Cathar Commando's pretty strong as a 2-drop. It has some flexibility and adds some power to the board, so he could consider that if he wants to stay on white-green, but he's going to stay open and take Flip the Switch here and perhaps flip over to blue.
Yeah, I mean, both blue-green or blue-white are perfectly fine options. Those are among the more powerful color combinations that you could be in this format. So just taking that and just kind of leaving yourself open makes some sense there if he doesn't value that Cathar Commando very highly.
All right, next pack is up. Defend the Celestis is an uncommon in green that he has an option on. Down below, you see Tapping at the Window and Pestilent Wolf. As far as white, it's just a Celestis Sanctifier. He didn't seem to like that before. But check this out. Paulo is taking a look at the premium. This is the premier black common. Those removal spells are good, but you know what's a little better? Ecstatic Awakener somehow, and he selected that here. So he's actually, if he takes it, he's got four for 4 on colors here, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, he's still
Take
just
a red
trying
card.
He's trying to find his lane here, right? Ecstatic Awakener is significantly better than all the other cards in that pack. So by taking it, and Paulo just kind of wants to potentially keep himself open. Ecstatic Awakener is a fantastic card, particularly in Black-White Sacrifice and Blue-Black Zombies. And look at that.
Whoa, that was a quick Flesh Taker. Interestingly, there are good red cards. There's a Moonrager Slash and a Play with Fire. He could actually go 5 for 5, but he really signals his intentions here by slamming Flesh Taker. Also of note here, Paul, the other cards in the pack that are really good are white and black.
Yeah, so I mean, this has to be a great sign if you're Paulo. You're looking at this back and you're going, you know what? I mean, I got a 4th pick Ecstatic Awakener, and now I see a Flesh Taker. This could be a sign. This could be the sign that Black-White is open, and this is the moment to kind of move in, right? I mean, you saw the 1-pack with the Hound Tamer, and it's one of those things too, with green, you don't really want to be green unless maybe you're the only green drafter at the table, right? It's
That's
not
right.
really deep enough to really support 3 drafters, maybe 2. So I think this was an excellent pivot. Paulo's leaving himself open. And take a look at his black and white cards. You're more than happy to start a draft with those 3 cards in your deck.
Absolutely. Even if he has to scrap the other 2, he's going to take Crawl from the Cellar here, which is a great card to have in the Sacrifice deck. You want to have one of these. It buys back creatures from the graveyard, and you're sacrificing them for value, so it kind of gives you a loop that you can go through. Here, another tough pack. Paulo seems really low on Celestis Sanctifier. It's a mediocre common, so he's right. He's going to take Seize the Storm. We've got all 5 colors represented here, Paul. Still finding that lane.
Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, Seize the Storm is an extremely powerful card. There is no way you would ever even consider splashing this in a black-white deck because that archetype is so creature-heavy. So I think he just took it just because it's the most powerful card in that pack. Thinking that he should be able to find enough playables. And, a card like Celestis Sanctifier is kind of filler, so maybe he can just fill that out if he needs.
This is his last unknown card. We're most of the way through pack 1 here if you're just joining us. And this is pack 1, pick 8. So the next pack will be his wheel pack, the one that he originally opened. He's got an Unruly Mob or a Ritual Guardian, or if he wanted, he could once again continue to stay in other colors. Yeah, he's going to take Neonate's Rush here, it looks like. He's kind of got Black-White Sacrifice or Blue-Red Spells.
Blue-Red Spells? I mean, yeah, I mean, again, the best card in the pack was the Neonate's Rush. So Paulo kind of waffling here, but I mean, this is a tough spot because, if he doesn't settle into his colors soon, he's going to be short playables here, right? We have 4 cards in black-white and 3 cards in blue-red.
He's going to take a decent card in Bat Whisperer, not a very exciting one, but it could certainly make the deck if he goes down that route. And he's just going to take a Brimstone Vandal here. Again, he's putting those over to the side. It's kind of difficult to see which way he thinks this is going, but if I had to guess, he would be leaning towards white-black. His better cards are there, and he has a few extras as well.
Yeah. Again, Paulo's still just kind of leaving himself open. Really does need to kind of buckle down in that second pack here because right now, I mean, he's gonna really need to kind of flesh out his deck a little bit here because he's going at the rate that he's going, he's going to be a few playables short.
And this pack doesn't look like it's going to help one way or the other. He's going to take a Lambholt Harrier, but again, that's going in at least what is currently his secondary deck. Now, that doesn't mean that he doesn't open something sweet in the next pack and really kind of pivot over, but he's going to have to make up his mind soon because looking at the way that the picks have gone for him, he's really split down the middle, and that is really not where you want to be coming out of the first pack.
Absolutely. And just kind of looking at how this pack went, I mean, you do see some Spells Matters payoff cards, but you're not really seeing a whole lot of blue either, right? The only decent playable-ish card was that Flip the Switch. So I think Paulo there might also just be giving himself the option of potentially going into black-red vampires.
Yeah, so let's take a look at what the table looks like, sort of from a broad strokes perspective. Paulo's passing to Ikawa, who's in primarily blue, Sifka's in red, then Rei Sato is in blue-green. As we work our way around, we see it's blue-black, 2 white drafters, and then Takahashi has solidified himself in green. So a little bit of bad news from pack 1 with the 2 white drafters upstream, but otherwise, you know, a little bit of wiggle room for Paulo. Now, the next pack's going to be coming the other direction here, and we could definitely see him go into blue-black, excuse me, into black-white, given what we see from the table here, Paul.
Yeah, if you just kind of take a look at that table graphic, yeah, it does look like, you know, he's kind of in the correct colors for his seat, right? He doesn't have a bunch of green. He's got a bunch of black and red cards and a few white cards. There are a couple of...
You say he's in the correct colors. He's in all the colors.
That's totally fair. One thing to note is the fact that there are 2 other drafters that have predominantly white as kind of their main color in their draft. So white is... It's a solid color, but I think it's pretty tough to support 3 players. So given kind of the way the draft's going so far, it would probably be better for Paulo if he looked to kind of solidify his position in black-red instead of trying to go black-white sacrifice.
All right, Paul. Well, let's find out what happens here for pack number 2. This is going to be an extremely important pack here for Paulo, as he needs to get on track. By the end of this pack, he needs to know where he's at, what 2 colors he's in, and then try to solidify himself for that 3rd pack, because he's going to be short playables here. Like, kind of either way he goes. He's opened Champion of the Perished, a card that really shines in zombie decks, but you do need critical mass of zombies, and it looks like he's going to take it here, Paul.
I mean, does he even have enough?
Not right now, no.
Is that his first zombie?
It is.
Okay, so
that's his first zombie, yeah.
Right. Now, keep in mind, Champion of the Parish also works really well with spells that put decayed zombie tokens into play.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Here's another Flesh Taker, Paul. So to me, this is a big moment, right? Right now he's counting up and he's seeing, okay, could I wheel something in black or white? There's a Gavany Trapper, a Lunarch Veteran, which are kind of standing out as cards that he's definitely interested in. Flare of Faith, Blessed Defiance, yes. And then Arrogant Outlaw, maybe not quite as much, but that's 5 cards that he has a chance to wheel, and he's going to take the second Flesh Taker. To me, Paul, this is him planting his flag. This is him saying, all right, these red cards are going to be out of here. I'm going to be black-white.
Yeah, I mean, Flesh Taker is a premium uncommon for this archetype here. Now, also keep in mind, I mean, if you just kind of looked at the black and red cards that were available, they were, again, kind of filler cards. So... might still be keeping himself a little bit open, but yeah, I mean, with 2 Flesh Takers, it's so hard to move off of that. You probably do want to make sure that you kind of lock in this color combination at this point.
Sigh of relief here for Paulo as he gets past Eaten Alive. With other playables in there too, there was a Siege Zombie and some more of the combat tricks that he passed in the prior pack, but Eaten Alive, one of the best removal spells in the set, and traditionally it goes beautifully in black-white.
Yeah, absolutely. You should have plenty of fodder.
Ooh.
And
he's lining them up now. Olivia's Midnight Ambush comes to him here. And in this next pack, there's also a couple of other playables with Clarion Cathars and that Siege Zombie too.
Yeah,
but I imagine gotta go for the removal here, right?
Yeah, I imagine he's going to go for the ambush here, but he would be more than happy having, you know, the Siege Zombie and probably even the Cathars at this point, given his lack of playables.
That's right. All right, well, back to business here for Paulo Vitor. Nothing super exciting for him out of this pack. He could take a Morning Patrol or an Unruly Mob. Unruly Mob seems like it would go beautifully in black-white with all the sacrificing going on, but I have to say it's really underperformed for the format.
Yeah, I think it's just... it takes a little bit too long to kind of get it going. Now, you do have double Flesh Taker in this deck, which is not very common. So maybe its stock rises a little bit, but that is also the type of card that you can kind of get later in the draft. Meanwhile, Morning Patrol, I mean, a perfectly serviceable card, very good in this archetype. You do have several ways to sacrifice, right? You do have the Flesh Takers, you do have the Ecstatic Awakener, and the Eaten Alive. So more than happy to have this as a nice card in the black-white archetype.
Yep, so he's going to take a 3-drop here to start filling out his curve. His curve is actually quite low as well, which is a big benefit in this format. It really rewards you for doing things early in the game. 1-drops see a ton of play in this format, and as you can see, Paulo already has a couple of them with the Champion of the Parish and the Ecstatic Awakener to just run out on turn 1 and get on board. This is fairly common here, and he's going to be relieved to see that. The Mystic Skull, perhaps not so much. Let's see what he gets out of this next pack. Yikes, a novice occultist.
I was going to say the same thing. I really appreciate that Paulo's laying out his deck in terms of how the finished product might be. But then there's also that Mystic Skull there. So I'm just curious how highly he values that card. Now, this Novice Occultist is generally not a fantastic card in other archetypes, but in black-white, with the double Flesh Taker, perfectly fine 2-drop to fill out your
curve. And the Ecstatic Awakener, it is the best 2-drop to follow up the Awakener, and he actually picks up another one here over Heirloom Mirror, which is proven, well, effectively unplayable. Really, really an underperformer in the format.
Yeah, it's the type of card that I wanted it to be good in the beginning of the set, right? You're like, oh, cool. I get to loot a few times, and then I get a big thing at the end. But it's really, really important in this format to add permanence, that battle early on.
Yep. The early few turns are relevant things. Yeah.
Exactly. You need to be adding to the board, and if you just take the time to activate the Heirloom Mirror a bunch of times, you're just going to fall too far behind.
Okay, Flare of Faith here for Paulo Vitor. Again, he's going to have some extra humans laying around. There's No Way Out and the Unruly Mob. This is where we really get to find out where Paulo's at on the mob, because again, it has not proven its worth in the format. But he is in the black-white deck. He does need more playables, and No Way Out's pretty mediocre too. He's still going to take it over the mob, though. I guess that shows us what he thinks about Unruly Mob.
There's also a little bit more upside here, given that he does have Champion of the Perished in his deck, right? So just having a few extra ways to kind of incidentally make zombies also kind of probably pushes it over the edge. Definitely. Also, Unruly Mob is just not that great.
It's pretty bad, yeah. The 2 combat tricks actually came back for Paulo here, so he could have his choice on Flare of Faith or Blessed Defiance. He already picked up 1 Flare of Faith, and he does have a decent number of humans already, so that's pretty good. It looks like he wants creatures, though. He's going to take the Arrogant Outlaw out of this pack.
Yeah, just valuing, kind of just making sure that he's got the proper curve here. Generally speaking, there's a bunch of different combat tricks that you'll have access to. Oftentimes, you're going to get them kind of last pick or close to last, and it doesn't really matter what combination of those combat tricks you get. You just want to make sure you have maybe 1 or 2 in your deck, right?
So yeah, they're fairly comparable to each other, exactly. Okay, he picks up a late Jack-o'-lantern, though currently not looking to splash anything with it. One thing to keep in mind as we wind down pack number 2 here for Paulo Vitor is that if you're used to playing on Arena, you're used to not playing against the people that you're drafting against. In the league structure, you play against a very broad pool of players, and you draft only against, the 7 other players in your queue. To play against, and there's a tiebreaker from, but you know what, you to have, and we call it card, and they'll do that. Paulo has him white Paul mission accomplished.
that is going to be rough. All 3 of those players. Black-white is one of the best archetypes in the format, but given that there are 3 people in it and coming into pack 3 where they're going to be passing to him, Paulo struggling with some quality here in this draft. Meanwhile, Sato there just quietly drafted and
just teamer.
What do you have?
The 2 that stand the most to me are Ikawa and Merkel, because they're in color pairs that are the 2 best, blue-white and blue-black, and they seem to be the only 2 in those individual pairs, so that's really strong. But we're going to have to hang on for the ride here for Paulo, because with 2 people drafting his deck upstream, he may be scrapping for playables here in pack 3. Let's see if he gets lucky and can get some good stuff in these first few picks before Strosky and Depra get their hands on those good cards coming downstream.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be seeing any more Flesh Takers.
Ooh, vanquish the Horde. Hello. That's a nice one. A sweeper that actually gets cheaper the more creatures are on the battlefield. Now, this is an interesting scenario here, Paul. He's going to take Vanquish the Horde, but let's not forget, these are open deckless games, and sweepers do go down a bit in value when your opponent knows you have the capability of casting one.
Yeah, no, that is true, but at the same time, that the power level of this card just cannot be ignored, right?
No.
And Paulo's deck is actually pretty decently set up for this. I mean, he's got a number of creatures, but imagine just having a board with a bunch of novice occultists and then just casting a Vanquish the Horde. You're not even down cards there.
Ooh, look at this. This is actually a difficult pick. There's Ecstatic Awakener, but also Olivia's Midnight Ambush. These are the two best black commons, and this is actually a closer pick than you'd think. Olivia's Midnight Ambush would certainly be the default pick for most players, but oh, look at this. Ecstatic Awakener, he needs more creatures, and he actually is really well set up with the double Occultist. Is he going to take a Awakener over the Ambush here? He did. Wow, yep. That's a top level pick there from Paulo. I really like that. That I think is a pick that not a lot of people would have made.
Yeah, no, I really like that pick. Also, just keep in mind, he's in a color pair where he can't really easily just make it into night or make it into day, right? So a lot of the times, you know, there can be situations where the Olivia's Midnight Ambush is just the -2/-2, in which case, I mean, when you're comparing the power level of an instant that gives -2/-2 versus Ecstatic Awakener, one of the premier commons in this archetype. I think Paulo did make the correct choice there. But yeah, it's not something that's intuitive, right? Going into this format, there's nobody that's going to take Awakener over a premium common removal spell early on. But, you know, people know a little more about the format now. And I think this was a really well-informed pick here by Paulo.
I wonder if the next pick was also part of that, because we're a little behind now. So Shady Traveler was the next pick after that. But there was also a Search Party Captain in that pack that looked pretty good for his deck, but the Traveler does at least give you the chance to get the Daybound thing going on, so maybe make your removal slightly better. I don't know. Now he's kind of shifting around the spells here. You see a lot of players sort this way, where they're curious about how many creatures they have or what their creature curve looks like. I know you do this as well, Paul. Yes. And the spells get over to the side because those are generally not cast on curve, right? Like the fact that Olivia's Midnight Ambush costs 2 is relevant because it's cheap, but not because you want to cast it on turn 2 very often.
Yeah, I absolutely love the way Paulo sorts these cards. That's exactly how I do it.
The Cheon method.
So my OCD self is loving Paulo because, you know, sometimes you watch other people, you know, drafting and it's just a giant pile of cards and I'm just like cannot parse what's happening at all. So this is a lot easier for us and probably a lot easier for all of you as well, the viewers. So.
Yeah. He's the world champion at many things, including sorting cards. He does have 12 creatures right now, which is a little on the low end, but he's got a lot of pack ahead of him here. So he's going to need to focus on just rounding out that creature curve, picking up a couple of more. But, you know, he's pretty much there. It doesn't look like many, but remember, it's 2 Awakener, 2 Occultist, 2 Flesh Taker. Oh, wow.
Wow.
Pick 6 foul play?
Yeah, that is...
How did that get to him through the other 2? That's awesome for him.
Yeah, incredible removal spell in this format where it's, you know, I touched on earlier how important it is to make sure that you put enough early plays onto the battlefield. So there are maybe certain formats where foul play doesn't have enough targets because people are playing bigger things. In this format, it's all about the small creatures. It's all about those things that you see early on, killing those siege zombies, killing the scab wranglers. So having access to that foul play, I mean, you will almost always have a target for that card.
Really great card. A solid 2-for-1 for Paulo to pick up, as now he's once again getting a little scrappy here. We can start to see the effects of having a couple of players up table from you who are in your colors, where, yeah, that Rotten Reunion is starting to become a possibility. You know, with 2 Ecstatic Awakener, a card like Rotten Reunion goes up a little bit. Basically, if you can have a curve where you play the Awakener, you play anything that you can on 2, and then you transform the Awakener on 3, that's a really strong curve out that has proven one of the best things to do in the format. And, you know, Novice Occultist is kind of the ideal pair for that because you get another card out of it. But, you know, you do what you got to do with the Rotten Reunion. Yikes. Yeah, pick 10 here from Paulo, and he just hasn't seen that many playables. This is because the other 2 players are in his colors.
Right. And it looks like now he's kind of just leaning towards a more controlling deck. Maybe not necessarily by choice, given that there are 2 other black-white drafters at the table. But you know what? The No Way Outs, you do have kind of that zombie theme. You have the Ecstatic Awakeners to sacrifice. And also, I mean, you have Wrath. You have Vanquish the Horde in your deck. So you might want to draft slightly differently to really kind of prioritize your picks around that premium rare that you have in your deck.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does look like what's happening here, more of a controlling build here from Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa is starting to form. We haven't seen him put his finishing touches there, but you can get an idea for how at least some of the players feel as we wind down the draft. Lots of concentration on the faces of our opening drafters as they take a look at what they just made, right? This is where you get to kind of step away a little bit, take a deep breath, and go, okay, what just happened? And speaking of what just happened, take a look at how the table went, Paul. Depra ended up in, well, kind of
Naya?
three colors. Yeah, Naya apparently. Strosky stayed on course there with the other black-white drafter at the table with Paulo. Yuta Takahashi. Well, there's a teamer deck. There's two of those at the table. Rei Sato as well. I like, colors-wise, I like where Merkel and Akawa are at, though. Blue-white and blue-black, and nobody else is sharing those specific color pairs. Those are the seats that I'm interested in.
Yeah, I mean, the really interesting thing when you're looking at this is just the fact that going in, blue-black and blue-white were the two strongest archetypes. That's the general consensus. And you would think that people would be fighting over those archetypes. And we only see one of each here. So I would guess that those two players probably have really, really powerful decks.
Yeah, those are the ones that I would look to as well. It's also worth noting that, this is a very tough draft table, right? We're at the World Championship here. These are players who know what they're doing, and it's not going to be easy no matter what. When I looked at Paulo's deck, if somebody sent me that and said, hey, what do you think of my deck? I'd be like, yeah, this is okay. You've got some good high-end stuff, some really powerful uncommons, but you've got a lot of filler cards in here as well. And I would look at it and think, that's fine. But we have to remember that they are drafting against some extremely tough competition here. So it is going to be very difficult to walk away with just like an A+ where you're just like, wanting to show it to your friends and be like, hey, look at this sweet deck I drafted. For the most part, they're not going to let you do that. The other players at the table are going to take stuff from you too.
Yeah, this is the type of thing where people are just probably not used to it, right? Because now we're in this world where you just kind of join an 8-man pod, but it could be anybody in that pod. So a lot of times you're used to looking at a pack and you're going, 4th pick Organ Hoarder, great. Yeah, good luck with getting a 4th pick Organ Hoarder in these tables, right? So everybody's decks are just going to look worse because everybody knows what's up. These are all world-class players. And so everybody has done their homework, and after 4 or 5 packs, you're just not going to see a lot of great picks left in those packs.
Do you think that Paulo ended up in the right color pair for his seat?
I mean, I think given kind of the way that his draft went, I think those were the cards that he probably should have gone with. I think maybe the other consideration was kind of that spells angle that he was looking for. I know he didn't see a ton of the blue cards, but we did see a couple of those Seize the Storms that were available, and that is an extremely powerful uncommon to build around, but it's kind of tough. The thing is, I mean, after Pack 2, there were 3 black-white drafters, so you don't really know, right? But they decided to go black kind of a little bit into the pack of Pack 2 because they were mostly white after Pack 1. So I think Paulo did a pretty decent job. And I mean, just given kind of the way that the players shifted into black-white, he kind of got a little bit hurt there after Pack 2.
Yeah, it did seem like the downstream drafters certainly had an effect negatively on him, meaning that they moved in roughly in his colors. As we saw, there was still some shifting around there from some of the players after the second pack. But you felt it in Pack 3, right? Like, yes, he got that foul play pick 6, which was kind of eye-opener. Like, how did that happen? But that was really the outlier. The only other cards that he got that he was really happy with in the pack came before that, where like he opened Vanquish the Horde, for example.
Right, exactly.
So what do you want to give as far as grades go for this deck?
I think he drafted the seat pretty well, but I think overall the deck is just okay, just given the nature of how there were other black-white drafters at the table. I'd probably give his deck, I don't know, a C+.
A C+, okay,
yeah.
Not too bad. Okay, well, I suppose that we're going to take a short break here, and when we come back, we'll have more from the World Championship. Don't go anywhere.
Paulo is the strongest player in the world, I think.
Like, this is actually one of the delightful parts of a match when you know you've won it, but you got to play out the last couple turns. It just feels really good.
Oh, it does. The best is if you're a control player and it's going to take like 6 turns and you just get to run it out. Here, though, Sam Pardee can see the finish line coming up, and he's really close to it because he has a dominating board presence here. And Arne, wow. And there's the Seeka's Chariot now off the top of the library to keep it going. Although, are we just going to see Sam go for the win right now? It looks like he's going for it.
It is party time. Sam is going for it. He's going to do his best to just get as many creatures on the board. You get as many +1/+1 counters off of his Shodan of the Scalds. And Arne can block 2 creatures, 6 damage goes through, and that's game for Sam Pardee.
Wow, congratulations to Sam Pardee. Puts his hands up in the air. What a season for him. Picks up a set championship, and now he'll be playing in the World Championships as well. Congratulations, Sam.
Perfect indeed.
Let's
Here
see.
we
It's
go.
so hard to whiff this many times.
There's a Winota. Sweet. Let's get that one swinging in. Why not?
Bang. Indestructible Winota.
Whiff. Kenrith. Lovely.
Indestructible Kenrith.
Here it
And
comes.
Marty cannot believe it. There's the
Double
Blade
Striker.
Destroyer.
There you go. That is going to be it. Here comes Elite Spellbinder 2. Sees the Shadow Skull smashing in hand. We'll get rid of that. Red mana still available. Here comes Minsk and Boo. And a final whiff, but more importantly, Kenrith is going to give everything trample and haste. That is double striking trample damage flying at Mari Quizma's hand. There's the good game. Keisuke Sato is going to the World Championship. Arne Huschenbett, a clean 2-0 here against David Inglis. He is going to lock up his spot in the World Championship. Just a few more checks before everything goes swinging in. A bunch of treasures made. We're going to create some more cats. Why not? And it's going to be easy as that. What a victory here for Arne Huschenbett.
Matt
Goodness.
played.
Yeah, just found everything in his deck, disgusting things, and is going to his in the World Championship. Great game there from Dallas, but it's all about Arne right now. And look at his face. Look how happy he is. That's what it means to players. He can't believe it. Oh my goodness. I got goosebumps.
I know, same. I was just gonna say I got complete chills.
Yes.
There's nothing like
Yes, Arne.
this.
Oh yeah, Paulo is one prayer in she's
Hey everybody, welcome back to World Championship 27. I've got our draft expert Corey Baumeister here in the virtual booth with me. And Corey, what an interesting draft. Let's take a look at our table here and kind of see what the players ended up in. Talk to me big picture here.
Yeah, so big picture, I think the biggest story is good drafters, believe it or not, are going to draft good cards. I know this is shocking, Maria, but Paul and Marshall really summed that up. That makes all of the deck quality kind of go down. So this is really going to lead to really nobody being happy about their deck here. We're going to hear a little bit of pessimism from just about everybody about the deck that they are thinking of. And I think one of the big factors to this is a kind of a crazy stat, Maria, is 6 out of the 24 rares ended up being in the last 3 picks of the pack. 6 of them. So that's like the pithing needles, all the kind of unplayable rares. So that leads a lot of players to not feel super good about their deck because they don't have as many bombs.
Yeah, and really interesting too to see 3 players ending up in 3 colors as well. Let's take a look at this table again, because what we're going to do is go around the table, take a look at the builds from these players, and then hear from them themselves what they think about their decks. First one we're going to start with Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa drafting black-white. Let's take a look at the deck he ended up building here. Corey, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so starting off, we just saw this draft here, and it started off with who really knew what Paulo was playing. After pack 1, I think he had 3 or 4 playables that were actually made his deck here, so he really wanted to stay open, and that's exactly what he did, because he got really paid off when it came to pack 2 and pack 3. Ends up with a pretty good deck, and we're going to be a little nicer to Paulo's grade than Paul and Marshall were. We're going to give him a B instead of that C+. He's the GOAT. We got to give him a B.
All right, so we're going to be giving grades to all of these draft decks here. Paulo Vitor Damo da Rosa, we're giving you a B, buddy. How do you feel about your deck, though? Let's hear from Paulo himself right now.
I think my deck is so-so, but I think the level in our pod was pretty low. The cards that we opened were pretty bad in general. So I'm hoping everyone else is giving you that answer right now from my pod.
Oh, Paulo.